Your Bambi bucket should provide you with trouble-free operations if it's properly maintained. Following are some checks and adjustments which may be made should a problem occur in the mechanical operation of the bucket. Here are some likely culprits should the dump valve in your Bambi bucket be leaking. Check for lack of seal between the valve and bucket shell. If there is a leak in the area, you need to apply new butyl rubber sealant, as is described in video section 14.4. Look for deterioration of the waterproofing of the dump valve fabric if your bucket was built prior to 1989. If this is the problem, you can either replace the valve with the current one or upgrade the waterproofing of the valve fabric using silicone sealant. Make sure the valve is totally dry. Apply silicone sealant to the outer face of the dump valve fabric, working it into the fabric. This can be done by pressing the sealant into the fabric with a spatula, with a hard surface behind the valve fabric. Also, look for creases or deterioration in the foam lips of the dump valve. If creases are found, either work out the creases or replace the valve. Finally, check for misaligned purse lines. If the lines are out of adjustment, refer to video section 11.6. We have found that should there be a malfunction in the control head, it is likely one of the following four examples. If the head will not release the dump valve trip line, first, check for solenoid malfunction. Check the electrical connections for proper operation of the solenoid. A click should be heard when the circuit is closed. Check that the white wires have not come loose from the terminal block. Check for a burned-out solenoid. Measured with an ohmmeter, the solenoid should have about 5.7 ohms resistance. A higher resistance may indicate a burned-out solenoid. A lower resistance may indicate a shorted-out solenoid coil. If the linkage is jammed, check to see whether the catch has ridden up on the bearing. If this is the case, activating the solenoid should release the catch. Check that the spring link is resting on the body of the stop bolt and not on the head of the bolt. Check the catch for burrs, both at the bearing face or the point. The point can be worn by the passage of the trip line bullet. Remove any burrs with a fine-tooth file. If your control head releases the dump valve prematurely, first check for loose trip lock bolts. If they are loose, tighten the trip lock bolts. Next, check to see if the links are above center. The links should be adjusted so that they're just below the center line of the clevis pins. Also check for a worn catch at the point. If it is worn, the catch should be replaced. Refer to section 13.3 in this video and the operations manual. If the trip line jams on returning, it may be that the trip line sleeves are fouling the upper cast guide lugs in the control head closest to the reel. If so, pull the trip line completely out. Check that the swage sleeve at the end of the trip line is not fouling up at the upper cast guide lugs on the head and cover. Round the end of the swage sleeve with a file. The lower set of cast lugs on the head act as a safety keeper to prevent a trip line broken at the top end from causing a tail rotor strike. The trip line swage should not fit through them. If the trip line doesn't return when the empty bucket is placed in water for filling, check for a broken spring in the spring power reel. A broken spring is indicated if the tension on the reel doesn't increase as the reel is wound, or if the tension increases in jerks or the spring seems to slip inside the reel. See section 13.2 for reel replacement procedure. Warning: do not remove the cover on the control head while operating the Bambi bucket. Part of the trip line safety keeper is cast into the control head cover. With the cover removed, this safety feature is no longer functional. Without the safety keeper functioning, a separated trip line could cause a tail rotor strike, which could result in severe injury or death and/or helicopter damage. Note, to ensure proper operations of the control head, do not use another type of bearing as a replacement for the ball bearing. Do not use lock wire as a substitute for the swage blocks on the trip line. Do not shorten or change the portion of the trip line which attaches to the reel. Do not use threaded bolts as a substitute for clevis pins. Do not modify the size or angles of the catch.